For those listening on the radio, good to have you with us. For those watching online later, good to have you with us as well. This a wet, damp, cold May morning, and pray that you're warm wherever you happen to be. You know that whether you're in the building or you're someplace else listening, we care about you. And the way that we care about you, one of the ways we care about you is by praying for you, praying with you, praying about your prayer concerns. If you're in the building, you can fill out those red and white contact cards, connect cards, and put those in the offering plate as the offering plate is passed in a few moments. Otherwise, you may have a prayer concern or just a point of contact with the church, and you can give us a buzz at 502-538-6756 or email us at mwumchurch@gmail.com. And we will receive those prayer concerns however you get them to us. Speaking of prayer, one of the habits that we had been in for several years was to have prayer time at the church on Sunday evening. For last year, for a variety of reasons, we discontinued that. But we'd like to give you an opportunity to think about a time that would be convenient for you to come and pray with us at the church. We'd like to start another prayer ministry. And on the Connect card, if there is a time, probably in the evening, but it might be some other time. It might be in the afternoon. If there's some times that you would feel comfortable and it would fit into your schedule to come and share with others prayer concerns and pray for our congregation, please note the times that you would like to do that, and we'll give other people an opportunity to kind of chime in as well. Sunday evenings work for a period of time, but for many people, it seems like once Sunday morning is over, everybody gets focused on Monday. So whatever works for the most of us, we'll try to do that. If you are in the building, you will have, I hope, a worship sheet like this, and the worship sheet like this has on it Psalm 30 on the front page. If you would stand and let us join together in sharing the call to worship. I'll share the regular words, and if you'll call back to me the bold italicized words from Psalm 30. I will exalt you, O Lord, because you have lifted me up and have not let my enemies triumph over me. O Lord my God, I cried out to you, and you restored me to health. You brought me up, O Lord, from the dead. You restored my life as I was going down to the grave. Sing to the Lord, you servants of his. Give thanks for the remembrance of his holiness. For his wrath endures but the twinkling of an eye, his favor for a lifetime. Weeping may spend the night, but joy comes in the morning. Let's turn our attention now to the Gospel of John, chapter 21, verses 1 through 19. It's a familiar passage to us, I think. Jesus is showing himself after the resurrection to his disciples. Let's hear these words. Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. They said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, you have no fish, have you? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there, with fish on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared to ask him, are you?" because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend to my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said it the third time. "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, "Follow me." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. In just a few moments, before we share communion, we are going to say to one another these words. Every time we share communion, we say these words. "In the name of Jesus Christ, you are forgiven." And you're going to say back to me, you all said that before, right? Yeah. We will declare that we have forgiven one another. That's powerful. Now I want you to hear these words. You should be ashamed of yourself. Have you ever heard those words growing up? Maybe you've heard those words as an adult. Maybe with a finger. You should be ashamed of yourself. Maybe in frustration you said that to somebody else. Maybe you've actually wanted to, but because you're an adult and you're in a professional setting, you're sitting there going, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, but you're not actually going to say it. Today's brief message is about shame and forgiveness. There is an author I've been reading who shares memories about shame. She says this. She says, here's a composite memory. I'm 5, 8, 12, 16 years old. I've sassed my mother or lied to my father. I've ruined a new dress, stayed out too late, misbehaved in church, or ignored my chores. I've failed in some way. Trivial or terrible, and I've been caught. But the most painful part of the memory is not the discovery. It's what happens after I'm caught. After I apologize, after I'm punished and sent to my room, the darkest part, she writes, is the shame. I pause because we've all felt the shame. She says, I didn't grow up in a home or culture that practiced restoration. Despite my family's best intentions, we never found our way to a language of grace. We never heard or said, I forgive you, like you just told me. Or it's okay, or I still love you. Instead, we abandoned the wrongdoer in our midst of a thick, damning silence. We withdrew affection to reestablish honor. You understand what I'm saying? Somebody apologizes, and then other parties go and sulk, as if to wait for a period of time. Until at some point, Daddy finally gets over it, or Mama finally gets over it, but nothing is said. There isn't a conversation. Eventually, after hours or days or weeks, depending on the severity of the crime, the ice thaws and life returns to a bruised normal. But a wound still festered below the surface. A thick, hot shame that filled my body and assured me that I was unfixable, unlovable, and still wrong. This week's gospel lesson, it begins with a really thick shame. As we begin reading, it's that thick shame. The disciple Peter is battling his shame on a fishing boat in the Sea of Tiberias. This is a picture of him after he's denied Jesus 3 times. Peter the rock. Peter whom Jesus astounded with the miraculous catch of fish. Peter, a fisher of men, remember? Peter who proclaimed Jesus the Son of God before any other disciple dared to. Peter whose mother-in-law Jesus healed. Peter who walked on water. Peter who saw Jesus transfigured on a mountaintop. Peter who promised to stay by Jesus' side even unto death. Peter whose courage failed so catastrophically around a charcoal fire on the night of Jesus' arrest that I'll bet he expected to spend the rest of his life fleeing from that single searing memory. Hey, I saw you with Jesus. You must be one of his followers. No, I'm not. I swear. I don't even know the man. If you're Peter, how many times do you think you wake up in the middle of the night and you're thinking that? Those are the last words. That complicated, wounded Peter returns to his fishing boat. What else is he going to do? Isn't that what we all do when we're ashamed? We retreat to whatever is safe, a safe place, a comfortable place, a familiar place, our bedroom. Some friends that you see my hunched over shoulders. That's them. Run headlong towards something, anything that will help us feel competent and worthy again. Peter flees to his boat, his nets, his vocation before Jesus, as if there is some time or place in his life where shame doesn't exist. I don't want to feel this shame anymore. Where this wound doesn't exist, where Jesus isn't anywhere and never was. I wish Jesus had never come into my life. Maybe he says. But of course, there's no time or place in our stories where Jesus isn't there. He's just as present in our fleeing as he is everywhere else. We can flee, we can leave. But Jesus is still with us, just as loving in the midst of our failures as he is when we succeed. I should repeat that sentence. He is there and loving in the midst of our failures as he is when we succeed. It's not Jesus who has stakes in drawing out our humiliation or maximizing our penance. If your mama or your daddy or your grandparent or somebody said you ought to be ashamed after you've apologized, the sin is on those people who tried to keep you shamed. I'm preaching now. Anybody tells us that we should be ashamed after we have said and believed we are forgiven, when you leave this day, after you receive communion, if you feel shame, it's somebody else shaming you. It's not Jesus and it's not the preacher. It's not. He's there. It's on our flawed understanding of God. And as I preached over the years, there are so many people who have a warped understanding of God. And I grew up in a codependent family with an alcoholic dad and all kinds of stuff. And I know when people feel ashamed, and I know when somebody's trying to shame me, and that's the devil doing either one. We are the ones who will say, okay, that's the last straw. Did y'all know that there's never a last straw with Jesus? There's never a last straw. That's the last straw. We are the ones who simmer in self-righteousness. You know what I mean? Simmer in self-righteousness. It's our need to rebuke and shame wrongdoers in order to keep ourselves pure. Jesus doesn't have those flaws, obsessions, or needs. His will is reconciliation, and his pleasure is grace. Jesus wants people to come together and listen to one another and move forward. But Peter doesn't know this. So he spends a long night trying to catch fish without Jesus. When you're trying to, he's still got that shame in his mind, and he's trying to fish, but his mind is probably just not in it. You know what I'm saying? You ever try to do something, try to avoid a conversation, try to avoid an issue, and your mind is just not there. You think that you fed the dog, and you look at him and you go, oh, I haven't fed you since yesterday. I'm just going through the motions. Oh. Peter doesn't know this. Trying to catch fish without Jesus, and he fails. Dawn breaks. Jesus shows up. A miraculous catch follows the night of futility. And Peter finds himself breathless and soaked, sitting by a charcoal fire. Again, looking in the eyes of the Lord, he denied 3 times. Again, facing those costly questions. Again, what I find useful in the story is the way that did y'all notice the way Jesus saves Peter by returning him to the source of his shame? He doesn't wrap the humiliated disciple in gauze. He doesn't avoid the hard conversation. This is important, friends. When we avoid hard conversations, the pain and the hurt of the broken relationship doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. We just take our bitterness into the next relationship. Like, we take our self-righteousness into the next marriage, or the next job, or the next church, or the next whatever. Jesus knows how to talk without causing shame. He doesn't pretend that Peter's denials didn't happen and didn't wound, but neither does Jesus preach or condemn or accuse or retaliate. He feeds. He feeds Peter's body, and then he feeds Peter's soul. He surrounds the self-loathing disciple with tenderness and safety, inviting him to revisit his shame for the sake of healing and restoration and commissioning. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Feed my sheep. When we think about, why did Jesus say 3 times, if you love me, feed my sheep? If you're mad at somebody, if you're upset with somebody, if you're put out with somebody, you're not going to ask them to do any favors for you, right? But Peter needed to hear Jesus saying, look, I know you screwed up, but I still love you, and I have a job for you. And in case you didn't hear it the first time, let me tell it to you the second time. Feed my sheep. And then the third time, you're not getting it, Peter. I love you. I care about you. Feed my sheep. So there's no talk about Peter messing up. There's just Peter, feed my sheep, feed my lambs. And at the end of this, the last two words, Jesus says, follow me. And Peter dies. I wonder what our failures would feel like if we offered each other the safety Jesus offers other disciples. The safety to return to the heart of our mistakes and despair. The safety to experience unconditional love in the midst of our shame. The safety to try again. What would our witness look like if the church epitomized Jesus' version of reconciliation? What if people said of us, they don't always agree about stuff, but they talk, they forgive one another, and they move along. Be kind of amazing. What would the world be like if Christians were known as the people to run into times of humiliation, to run to in times of humiliation? Can we, like Jesus, become sanctuary for the shamed? Around the fire Jesus builds, Jesus wants Peter not to be afraid. I don't know the man. Evolves into trust and worship. Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. In the end, Peter realizes that it's what Jesus knows that matters. Jesus knows that we're more than our worst failures and betrayals. Jesus knows that you and I, even when we make the biggest mistakes, He still has a plan for us. There is still a plan. There's no wallowing in shame. There's no waiting out the clock. There's no last straws. There's just, come on, let's go. And He knows how to build the fire and prepare the meal that will beckon us back to the shore. Jesus' appearance to Peter, like all the post-resurrection appearances the Gospels record, speaks volumes about God's priorities. In the days following the resurrection, Jesus doesn't waste a moment on revenge or retribution. If all of your followers had let you die on a cross, would you be slightly miffed? Miffed, maybe? And when resurrected Jesus, miff is not even in His vocabulary. He spends all of His time feeding and restoring and strengthening His friends. He calls Mary Magdalene by name as she cries. He offers His wounds to the skeptical Thomas, like last week. He grills bread and fish for His hungry disciples. He heals what's wounded and festering between His heart and Peter's. In other words, Jesus focuses on relationship, on reconciliation, on love. He spends the last days before His ascension delivering His children from fear and despair and self-hatred and paralysis. He wastes no time on being triumphant. Even at the height of His power, He chooses humility. He chooses to linger on a lonely beach till dawn, waiting for His hungry children to realize how much He loves them. He chooses to ask Peter an honest and vulnerable-making question about denial, even though the answer might hurt. He chooses to feed and tend His sheep. Peter's shame and our shame meets Jesus' grace, and Jesus' grace wins. That's the gospel story in a nutshell. Remember, the worship team was singing about Jesus in the boat and Peter walking on water, and then he begins to fail. We should know about Jesus when Peter's walking on water and he begins to fail. Jesus doesn't say, "You fool, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I'm going to let you drown and then I'll resuscitate you." He doesn't. He reaches out and lifts Peter up yet one more time. Because with Jesus, there's never a last straw. There's no shame to linger. There's only forgiveness to offer and receive.